A shared session after a while in this test series. South Africa started steady on the fourth morning, but India's spinners have struck thrice, and South Africa 107 for 3. They had 81 runs in what was a bit of an attritional session, but one that sees South Africa swell their lead to close to the 400-run mark, while the pitch starts to show more turn and more bounce. So lots of questions to pose ahead. Welcome to ESPNcricinfo Matchday, where we're in the company of Saba, Karim. Saba, good morning to you. A pleasure for me to have your company on our live shows for the first time.
Cheers.
And we are joined by Oracle Philander as well. Vernon, good morning to you as well. You have been calling it quite right. You said 2 for 90 is what you were expecting. Finishes 3 for 81 in 32 overs. How do you view that session for South Africa?
Yeah, good morning, guys. I think a lot of promising signs for South Africa is, obviously watching the surface starting to take a bit of turn, take a bit of bounce. So, as expected, I think the scoring rate will become a little bit more tougher, with those elements coming into play. But even Stevens, I would say, in that particular session, I don't think for South Africa it's a matter of runs at the moment. I think it's a matter of, being comfortable, knowing that batting India, first of all, out of the game, and secondly, making sure that they're bossing the game from a batting point of view. I think they'll probably leave India in the vicinity of about 480 to chase, and by doing so, obviously throwing caution to the wind, but also asking India to make a play. I think in that regard, you give yourself the best opportunity of winning this test match.
Yeah, I'll inform you, Vernon, that when we saw that graphic on the broadcast saying that the first session was shared, it prompted a bit of a reaction from Saba, Karim, because while these 32 overs per se, Saba, make it look equal, the signs of turn and bounce, is that what gets the reaction that it does from you?
Yes, absolutely, Yash. On a track like this, I think South Africa's plan was on expected lines. They were cautious, and understandably so. They wanted to put some runs on board without losing too many wickets. And the moment they realized that fourth-day track is offering more turn and bounce, and I think the turn and bounce from say 3.5 from day 2, 3.7 to day 3, it has now reached 4-degree turn that the spinners are extracting on this kind of a surface. So one can figure out why South Africa was more cautious and more patient in the approach. But now I think post-T session, one can see that acceleration coming through. And I think Vernon is absolutely right. Even yesterday we discussed this, Yash, that they would be looking at getting to a score vicinity of 475, 480. So they kind of literally bat out India from this contest. And I think that's the kind of position South Africa is looking to get at.
Yeah, Vernon, that delivery that got Bavuma out from Washington Sundar, I think it clocked 9 degrees. Yeah. So as much as South Africa have lost these 3 wickets, this is a session that really pleases them, especially a Simon Harmer and a Keshav Maharaj.
Yeah, and I think the pleasing thing to take away from that dismissal was that the ball actually turned off the straight. So I think it's something that we haven't seen throughout this test match. But I'm mightily pleased with the surface. I think it's offered up, obviously something for the seamers in the first innings. And, as expected, you're playing in the subcontinent, the spinners will have to come into play. So I'm mightily impressed with how the surface is hold up, number one. But yeah, going into this last 2 days, I do feel that we can see a lot more, obviously, spin options being utilized. But I think the spinners will now become the attacking option rather than the holding bowlers. But yeah, a fantastic surface.
Mighty pleased by the surface. Words that we haven't heard describing a pitch in recent weeks across the globe in Test cricket. But Saba, let's break down this session. And let's start with how South Africa's openers, because Rickleton and Markram with a solid start. And that's been a vital enough theme. Yes, we focus on the runs that have come from the lower order and the spinners and the bowlers for South Africa, but the openers, 350 stands in 4 innings, doesn't happen too often.
Well, that's brilliant stuff from South Africa, because in Indian subcontinent, in Indian conditions, you need your opening pair to post a substantial score on the board, because then things get easy for the other batters to score runs. And especially when you notice that when the ball is hard, with that pronounced seam that SG Test cricket balls provide nowadays, it becomes so imperative for your top order batter to put runs on the board. And I think that's what both these players have done for South Africa. Ryan Rickleton is more aggressive. On the other hand, you have Aiden Markram, who looks very solid, who knows how to construct an innings. And I think whatever runs they have added for South Africa right at the beginning, even in Eden Gardens for that matter. I mean, even here, I think it just goes to show that they have a game plan which is based on solid technique, and then looking to build partnership.
Varun, we've had varying South African teams who've played in varying conditions in India over the last 15, 17 years. But you'd have to go back to 2008 for their last opening partnership of 50 plus in a test in India. For Markram and Rickleton to do it thrice in 4 innings, weigh in on just how good their contributions have been.
Yeah, I think having played there before, I know, losing one or two quick wickets, the amount of jitters you have in the change room, the unsettledness, around, obviously, players padding up and everyone rushing for pads. So I think with these 50-run partnerships that they have been able to obviously form at the top of the order, it just sends a message of calmness back to the dressing room. It also sends a message that, you can bet on these kind of surfaces. So it was important for them to start well. But I think what impressed me most was the approach taken by these guys. I think it was one, of course, Markram, he looked to be a lot more solid in defense, but Rickleton is always going to look to score. And I think that's something in the recent past that we have struggled with in the subcontinent, getting off to a positive start. But I think the application as well from both these players, obviously allowing themselves to get in. But yeah, I think mightily impressed by the way they've gone about constructing the innings.
Yeah, added 57 in just 10 overs to start the series, had an 80-run stand in the first innings here in Guwahati, and now another 50 stand to cap off what is a fine series for South Africa's openers. Let's talk India's bowlers. And immediately, when you look at the first session scorecard, Kuldeep Yadav bowling just 2 overs. What do you think prompted that?
The surface, Yash, now with the amount of turn and bounce that this surface provides, so it would make sense from India's point of view to operate more with Washi and Ravindra Jadeja, because both of them are quicker in the air. Kuldeep Yadav was utilized more in the first and the second day, and no wonder he was able to pick those 4 wickets. So I think I'm perfectly fine with this kind of a bowling plan. What we want to discuss now, and I want to bring this point forward, is you need to find spinners who can get you wickets on a flatter surface that we have seen in India, maybe the first couple of days. For a 4th day track or a 5th day track, the kind of bowling attack we have now, it's these kind of spinners are ideal to pick wickets for you. But to gain advantage and to get into stronger winning positions, you need to have spinners who impart more spin on the ball, so that you're able to lure the bats in, you are able to set up a batter, and then eventually you get wickets, what Keshav Maharaj and Simon Harmer to a large extent were able to manage. So I think that's wherein lies the issue here with this Indian bowling lineup. Otherwise, if you look at the entire combination of the Indian spinners, it is suited for day 3 and day 4 and day 5 kind of a track. But I think that's the kind of thinking which needs to take place in the Indian think tank.
There's also the added layer to this, and you were bringing this up off air as well as on air, that in the first innings you didn't see India's spinners bowl long enough. That changed in this session, perhaps prompted by the conditions, but an important factor for spinners to get to bowl long enough to set up batters.
In a big way, Yash. In fact, I was chatting with Anil Kumble while I was at Eden Gardens doing commentary with him, and he brought up this point that for spinners, especially on day 1, day 2 in Indian conditions, you need to give more space, more overs for a spinner to set up batter. 4-5 over spell does not do justice to the way a spinner wants to operate or the way he plans to get a batter out. So I think that's what happened when India was bowling in the first innings. Shorter spells from all the spinners, they were not able to figure out the game plan or how to set up a batter.
Yeah, the longest spell for an Indian spinner in the first innings was 8 overs by Ravindra Jadeja. Vernon, on the flip side, South Africa had Simon Harmer bowling 21 on the trot. So weigh in on this part of the conversation.
Yeah, I think that's the danger when you pick 4 spinners. I think, you become impatient. I think the level of expectation, to almost bowl teams out become, so much more. So I do feel, obviously picking more spinners, as a captain, you almost feel, that you have to utilize, all of them. But I think Simon Harmer, Keshav Maharaj, these guys are used to bowling long spells. I think Keshav Maharaj, when he plays domestic cricket back home, he averages like 30 overs. And these are also not even spinning friendly conditions. So he does bowl long spells, and I mean it's like Saba said, as a seamer as well. Sometimes, I felt, bowling 4 or 5 overs almost do, injustice to, my skill level, and sometimes trying to set a batter up, because very often you bowl to a batter where you feel comfortable against the batter, and, you might get 1 or 2 singles, get off strike, so you don't get to bowl to him for, perhaps 2 or 3 overs. So in that little spell where, you've gone missing, and where you could have extended your spell, especially spinners. I think spinners can bowl easily, 7 to 8 overs and heal 2 wickets, because they get into the spell, they get into the groove, they get to understand the pace, they get to understand, what's going to make them effective. But I think 4 or 5 overs at a time, it's a bit too quick for, to chop and change. So I fully second, the sentiments of Saba on that point. So spinners, they'll have to bowl longer spells.
Also, yeah, just to accentuate on that point, and I think what Vernon was alluding to is, you go back to the kind of resources South Africa have got now. They've got Simon Harbour and Keshav Maharaj. Both of them are used to bowling longer spells. And I think at times overseas teams, when they travel to India, they make the mistake of picking good, exciting, talented spinners, but who don't have the habit of bowling long spells. So I think that is why they fall short of competing in these conditions. So this time around, I think South Africa have been extremely intelligent, and the strategy has worked so well. So they picked resources, they picked spinners who have the habit of bowling on unresponsive wicket, as well as they have this ability to bowl longer spells.
Yeah, I can cast my mind back to when England came here in 2024 with Shoaib Bashir, yes, featuring, promising, but didn't have the legs in him.
Yeah.
Now South Africa come with a Simon Harmer with 1,000+ first-class wickets to his name. All right, let's look ahead to the second session. 5 sessions left in this test match, which does not mean 150 overs, knowing what the conditions and the light has been like. Saba, India first. What is their strategy going into this second session? Are they looking to just keep the run flow stifled so they ensure South Africa bat longer?
They're left with no other escape route, Yash. So India would like to keep the South African batters on the field as long as possible, so that they get less time to maybe look to bat out, and draw can be a possible result for India. That's the only way I can see India taking this game forward. But I think from South Africa's point of view, they would love to get quick runs on board now, maybe 15 overs post-tea session, get another 75, 80 runs on board. They have enough wickets on hand. This is a good partnership that Zorzi and Tristan Stubbs have stitched. So they would love to add more runs quickly so that they have enough time to bowl out India in the 4th innings.
Vernon, lay down the template for South Africa. We have seen Tony de Zorzi since he's come in the runs. He's struck at a fair clip. How do you see the second session going?
Yeah, I think they'll probably get themselves set again after the tea break. So I think they're going to give themselves perhaps 6 overs to see, just to see how this surface is going to behave. Get themselves in, and then I think we might see an acceleration. So I think in an ideal world, South Africa would probably want to try and bowl between 8 and 10 overs before that lunch break. And then, of course, whatever's left after the lunch break. I mean, we're not too sure, with the light coming into play a bit later on. But I think if they're giving themselves 20, 25 overs, this evening at India, I think that's a, fair chance of using that second new ball tomorrow afternoon as well. So yeah, I think, they're probably going to look to go 10 overs before the extra lunch break.
All right, that's the ideal world scenario. I won't let you go without giving us Vernon's world scenario. Give us the score at the end of this second session.
Yeah, I think South Africa 480 ahead. They'll declare with that, and they'll feel comfortable with that score. And then, well, they'll probably look to knock 2 over before the lunch break.
Ooh, Saba.
I'm fine with runs. I would like to deduct the number of wickets Vernon has mentioned. Let's keep it at one, Vernon. Let's keep both the sides happy, my friend.
There
I'm
are
trying
enough.
My best. Trust me, I'm trying my best.
There are enough in India who are thinking even 1 wicket is not a happy scenario. That means you're
I know,
looking
you're right,
at a
you're
long
right.
4 sessions after that. But all right. Thank you to you fine gentlemen. Thank you, Vernon. Thank you, Saba. These gentlemen will be back to pick up the conversation at the end of the second session. That's lunch on day 4 in Guwahati. So join us then on ESPN Cricinfo Matchday.